The Battle of Sheriffmuir was an engagement in 1715 at the height of the Jacobite rebellion in England and Scotland. The battlefield has been included in the Inventory of Historic Battlefields in Scotland and protected by Historic Scotland under the Scottish Historical Environment Policy of 2009. Sheriffmuir was and is a remote elevated plateau of heathland lying between Stirling and Auchterarder on the north fringe of the Ochil Hills. Background: John Erskine, 6th Earl of March, standard-bearer for the Jacobite cause in Scotland, mustered Highland chiefs, and on the 6th of September declared James Francis Edward Stuart as King of Scots. With an army of about 12,000 men, Mar proceeded to take Perth, and commanded much of the northern Highlands. Following unsuccessful skirmishes against John Campbell, 2nd Duke of Argyll, Mar was eventually persuaded to lead his full army south. On the 10th of November, spies informed Argyll of Mar's actions, and he moved his army of about 4,000 to Sheriffmuir, near Dunblane. The two armies met on the battlefield on the 13th of November 1715. Battle. Argyll was seriously outnumbered by the Jacobite army, and his left wing, commanded by General Wetham, was far shorter than the Jacobites' opposing right. Argyll's right wing attacked, and managed to drive the Highlanders back, but Wetham's soldiers were overpowered by a much larger force. Argyll came to the aid of Wetham's men. By evening, both armies were seriously reduced, and although Mar had a great advantage in numbers, he refused to risk the entirety of his army, allowing Argyll to withdraw. The battle was inconclusive, with both sides claiming victory. However, in strategic terms, Argyll had halted the Jacobite advance. Those government regiments present that were titled kings were awarded the White Horse of Hanover as a badge of battle honor. The engagement only served to demoralize the Jacobite army, who, with the superior numbers, felt they should have decisively won. Mar's French and Spanish supporters in particular withdrew the forces. Aftermath. The modern Scottish historian Neil Oliver states that in hindsight their Jacobite failure of the Rising of 1715 seems astonishing, in that the Jacobite leader, the Earl of Mar, could easily have moved past the Duke of Argyll to link up with the English Jacobites and Catholics in the north of England, had he had the merest sense of how to fight a campaign rather than lead a parade. On the 23rd of December, the Old Pretender, who had been exiled in France, landed at Peterhead, his cause largely lost. He met with Mar at Perth, but was unable to rouse the disheartened army. Argyll, reinforced and invigorated, soon advanced north, while the Jacobite army fled to Montrose, and the Pretender returned to France. The army moved to Ruthven and dispersed. The period was fatal in the extreme to the Jacobite Pretender. The whole body of his adherents in the south had fallen into the hands of Generals Willis and Carpenter at Preston, and Inverness, with all the adjacent country, had been recovered to the government, through the exertions of pro-government clans including the Earl of Sutherland, Fraser Lord Lovat, the Rosses, the Munros, and the Forbeses. Casualties. The number of the slain on the side of the rebels has been stated to have been 800, among whom were the John Leon, 5th Earl of Strathmore and Kinghorn, and the chief of the clan MacDonald of Clan Ranald, and several others of distinction. James Maule, 4th Earl of Panmure, and Drummond of Logie were among the wounded. It meant that the Jacobite army had to withdraw to Perth. Argyll considered himself the victor and struck a medal to commemorate his feat. of the government army. There were killed and wounded upwards of 600. Archibald Douglas, 2nd Earl of Forfar, was the only person of eminence killed on that side. A famous Jacobite song, Sheriffmuir Fight, was written about the battle. As with many such songs, the battle is presented as a noble victory for the Jacobite army. The song was collected by, and perhaps written by, James Hoggy in 1819. Robert Burns, and The Battle of Sheriffmuir. The battle was the subject of The Battle of Sheriffmuir, one of the most famous songs written by Robert Burns. The song was written when Burns toured the Highlands in 1787 and was first published in the Scots Musical Museum, appearing in Volume 3, 1790. It was written to be sung to the Cameronian rant. Burns knew that the battle ended so inconclusively that it was unclear which side had won, and the poem is the account of the battle by two shepherds, taking contrary views. One of the shepherds believes that the red-coat lads black cockades routed the rebels, painting a fearful picture of how they managed to half the clans like 9 pink isles. The other shepherd is just as convinced that the Jacobites did pursue the horsemen back to Forfar, with the eventual result that mony a hunted poor redcoat for fear amorous did Swarfman. Dissatisfied with the first published version of the poem, Burns rewrote it sometime after 1790. The revised version was published after Burns' death by his editor, James Gurry MD, in the Complete Poetical Works of Robert Burns, with explanatory and glossarial notes, and a life of the author.